Hello, and thanks for joining us. This is Full Day, and I'm Vin Martin Obiora Ilu. The Igbo boy, or what they call the Igbo apprenticeship system model, or whatever you call it, has become so popular that it has attracted the attention of experts at the world-renowned university, Harvard. It has become controversial. It has become the big issue in Igbo land that is attracting so much attention, to the point that a professor of management at the University of Nigeria took it as his inaugural lecture, and that was recently. I have the pleasure of hosting this professor in our studio, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Professor Emmanuel Kalu Agboeze. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So, am I right when I say that the inaugural lecture for a professor is the coming of age?
Yes, certainly. It is. It is considered as a rite of passage for full professors that are distinguished. And of course, if you want to look at the origin, it started with European countries very many years ago. In fact, it was said to have started about 1046 and gradually crept into Harvard and Oxford. And even in Harvard and Oxford, it wasn't open to every person. It was open specifically for professors who are very distinguished, full professors, who are able to showcase what they have done, their research output. You know, the problem we have in some part of the world is that research works are not bring to bear with the practice, with what happens outside the society. But it gives an opportunity for professors to tell the world what he has done, what he's doing, what intend to do further. And then that makes it possible for that research input to be put into action.
You know, I keep wondering why you chose this. I mean, you've been a professor for so many years, and among so many other things, so many topics, so many researches you had conducted, you wanted to talk about this particular issue. And you entitled your lecture, Entrepreneurial Realism, the Igbo Model. But I want to reduce it to the Igbo boy or the Igbo apprenticeship model. So, why did you choose that among so many things you've done? You're a renowned professor, so that couldn't have been the only research you've been involved in.
It is important to have a recall on what to call a research. A research is about being able to solve an existing problem. It gives you an opportunity to look back and see what appears to be a societal problem and find a solution to it. If you done research on a non-existent issue, let me say this. I chose this topic. Look at it, the thing is entrepreneurial ruralism. It talks about entrepreneurship within a given set of people, futures of the entrepreneurship of a given set of people. And specifically, we started to discuss the Igbo model. And we also try to look at what very renowned universities call it. Some call it Igbo boy apprenticeship system. Some call it Nwodibo apprenticeship system. And we also have these controversial issues of people who pass through it and they will end up saying they were not settled. They were not set up. And some masters who, after being served, were not settled those who have served them. It's a two-way thing. So because of this current issue, we try to provide solution to the existing problem and also to fine-tune the name they call the system. First, I want to make it clear that I am principally an Igbo man before being a professor of management with specialty in organizational change management, entrepreneurship development, thought and philosophy of management. The issue we're making is that the apprentice system in Igbo land is unique. Just like people make efforts to distinguish between coaching and mentoring, they are teaching processes. But the Igbo system is not necessarily a boy. It is a mentor-tee apprenticeship system. And it's deeply rooted in Igbo tradition. If you look back, every frontline Igbo family has a family business. And family members are trained in-house on how to operate these businesses. So for an Igbo man, there's a pattern.
So will it be right to say, when you talk about individual families having a family business, will it be right to say that if the leader of the family, maybe the father, was a wine tapper, and then it was a wine tapping business, that the Igbo boy even starts from that point? Or if the father was a trader, or if the father was into some other thing, could also that be part of the Igbo boy system?
In the way using the nomenclature as it's used before now, Igbo boy, we tend to disagree with that word, Igbo boy.
Okay, we need to clear that first.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think what I wanted us to do is to agree on the concepts.
Okay.
And I often make this attempt to allow people to understand what I mean by the concept before I get into the discussion. Because even people like the old Aristotle will always tell you at the beginning of every logic, every discussion, that the parties must agree on the concepts. What they call definition, dispensity, ad definition. So what we are saying is that the Igbo apprenticeship system is a school. It's a family mentoring school where family members are trained, tutored, not just in learning, but also in character. And people pass through it, often for about 7 years. And at the various levels, the learning and the teaching are classified often in 7 layers that are contained in my inaugural lecture. If you pass through the first stage, you get over the second level, until you get to the final stage. Only those who succeed, who successfully pass through the schooling system, get settled. And even those who pass through them, the level of success also tend to vary. That also determines the level to which they are established. And in the Igbo system, it may not necessarily be by chunk of money. It could be by linking you up into a family line business, into what we call pattern multiplication. You are taught both the secret of the business, how it is done. You can be settled with a good amount of money without transferring the full format to you. So at the end, you don't do well. But those who get the full format, get some money, get some connection, get some linkage, and such people thereafter takes over the business exploration. And it will become smooth at that point. For the system, we prefer to call it the Igbo mentor-mentee apprenticeship system. The basic difference between the ordinary coaching exercise and that of Igbo is that the emphasis is not just on learning. is also on character building. And it does not only end in the character building. The master entrepreneur, the entrepreneur themselves, are interested in the person even after leaving the apprenticeship scheme.
So the mentorship does not stop when you're settled?
No. It does not.
Yeah, I seem to agree with you, Prof, because you find out that even when the mentees have left the mentor in terms of the learning period,
Yes,
you see them linking them up with their contacts in the business, bringing them into associations that can help what they're doing, and still focused on how to improve their business.
of course.
Is it something that is dying today, or is it still practicable?
It is gradually dying. Two things are involved. I've also have tried to classify the apprentice system into two basic era. What I call the classical Igbo apprenticeship model and the neoclassical period. In the classical system, the traditional system, the core traditional system, you find out that most of the apprentices you find were all family members. Either sons of the man, that of family members, wives,
Cousins.
or cousins, close relationship. And if you get into like Bende, Aba, Umuahia, Enugu, and the rest of them, you'll find out there's something they call the Ndi-Ogbo. Because in the business system, you discover that every person is Ogbo. That's my namesake. So it's entirely in-house. And there are no trust issues were not there at all. Both the small and the big, all of them are taught carefully the rudiments, the principles of the business. And it is its survival is anchored strictly on trust and goodwill. Betrayals were not involved. And it continued in that order. And after that traditional system, the classical system, came the neoclassical era in Igbo apprenticeship system. This neoclassical apprenticeship system came about 1970-75. When it started going outside immediate household, the nuclear family, it started having a wider extension. Where people who may not necessarily be members of the family are brought into a family business to understudy how the business is done. And the issue of settlement, non-settlement, started coming up. It was only at that stage that the issue of trust started creeping up, where people will come in and become faster than their master. They want to make money ahead of time, and often some of the apprentices come on board without understanding the sequence. If you look at the Igbo model, there are 7 layers. In these 7 layers, after the acceptance level, you also tested on endurance. Once you are tested on endurance and you pass through, you went to what we call first level integrity test. That system, that model, is heavily built on character building. You must learn the trade. You must also be able to show that you are a man of integrity, to be trusted. You know, when a man gives you his business, allows you to run it, takes all the money and run it, it borders on trust and confidence.
Okay, before we go far into that, what was responsible for the transition from the classical to the neoclassical? What happened in about 1974, 75, 76, just not too long after the Civil War?
Not too long.
What was responsible for that transition?
What happened was that the system moved out from household it became more impressive. People outside the immediate family system were introduced into the business. The scope became wider. That is no longer in-house business. It expanded beyond the control of the immediate parenthood. That you get into a shop, you find in Onisha, you find people from Sokoto, you find from Kogi, working under a man. So that issue of nuclear family maintenance, absolutely based on Igbo tradition and culture, became expanded. It was only at that point that the issue of trust and confidence came into being.
Now, are you saying that if I had a son who was in my business, that I can't have trust issues with him?
The difference is that for your son, in most cases, you are more open.
You can overlook.
You are more open. And in most cases, your son, on average, will exhibit what we call ownership mentality. Even when, you know, in the land they tell you that a good son is not giving yam. You don't give your son a yam. He takes the yam. And in taking the yam, he knows what to take and not what to take.
And comes some responsibility.
Yes. He exhibits ownership mentality in Kai that needs to be protected.
Okay, Prof, let's look at how the model, the Igbo boy, the apprenticeship, has become such a big issue today. That Harvard, a lot of business schools across the world are getting interested in this Igbo model. Is it because it has become so successful? Is it because it's become so controversial? What is this sudden interest that everybody wants to know exactly what is happening?
An average businessman has to be interested in the model. The fact is this: it's a very successful means of multiplication or pattern of a business. You know, you can become what we call pure entrepreneur or a franchise operator, but in an apprenticeship system, it makes effort to transfer full format of operation. And if you look around, it has a way of bringing young men with entrepreneurial acumen, entrepreneurial learning into focus. It's a very successful, very beautiful, seamless way of giving people job, multiplying, rejuvenating business, and moving on. It's very successful.
Does it increase wealth?
To a very great extent. In fact, the system is the bedrock for transformation of Igbo land. It is the system. If you get to any place, any businessman you see today, ask him, he will tell you he served under this man or that man. And many of them have a story to tell of the basic training they got. It's a school that border on trust, confidence, character, and then a subtle means of doing the business.
Let me ask. A lot of people say that the Igbo boy system also affected school attendance in Igbo land. That the Igbo boy system was responsible or has been responsible for the male gender not to go to school as much as the females in Igbo land. Do you subscribe to that?
No.
But there's some statistics to show that school enrollment, especially among males in Igbo land, has gone down.
I agree.
Or is it not something you looked at in
no.
your research?
I will go to that. I will also tell you. For school enrollment in Igbo land, if you look at the statistics correctly, if you look at the statistics, the number of people who went to school across the ages, across the time, what would be right to say is that school enrollment for ladies, for women, is on the increase. Not necessarily for the men. But because that of the men has not been growing at equal proportion with that of the women appear to dominate the scene.
So you may give credence to the fact that it has also affected education in Igbo land. Because again, critics, or would I really call them critics, but people that want to really look at the Igbo boy system are also saying that it's also responsible for the get rich quick. You know, they have this feeling that if I go there for 7 years, I have my own business, I start making money. When another man needs to spend 6 years in the primary school, another 6 years in secondary school, another 4 or 5 years or more in the university. And everybody just wants to do this shortcut, and then you don't think that holds water?
It doesn't really hold water. Because actually, if you get into entrepreneurship, into the system, most parents, before they really reach their children to you, will also ask you, are you sure my children are going to go to school under this system? If the answer is no, they don't give you the child. They don't hand over their children to you.
That must be the new thing, because most of our people.
And if you say yes, they say come aboard. And let me also say this clearly: if you just take a walk into any of these marketplaces you find here, any boy you meet, any girl you meet there, who is dealing with you, ask him or her background. You discover that most of those boys you find in the main market, Ariaga, Enugu here, Onisha, are graduates. Listen, you can't be an effective businessman without education. The way they deal with you, the way they talk to you, if you just take time and say we did this school, you'll be surprised as much as have masters and have first degree masters. And you see them, simplicity, humility is an aspect of the training. Service giving is core. But like I said, the system itself is not small boy apprenticeship system, which they call Igbo boy apprenticeship. We say no, that the name itself is Igbo mentor-mentee apprenticeship system. Reason being that in a typical coaching exercise, the interest of the master ends in making sure that knowledge passes. But in the Igbo mentor-mentee apprenticeship system, it does not end there. The interest is on the individual who is being trained.
And his success.
And his success, even after leaving the apprenticeship of the master. The master stays, some of the master stays back and hand over the entire business to an apprentice.
Okay,
at old age.
Prof, we'll take another break, and when we return, we'll look at the issue of settlement and non-settlement, and why it has become so controversial and disruptive in the mentor-mentee Igbo apprenticeship scheme.
Thank you.
Don't go away.
The key ingredients of entrepreneurship is mentorship.
Professor Abweze, whose lecture was entitled Entrepreneurial Realism, the Igbo Man's Model, noted that entrepreneurship, which is referred to as Igbo boy, is deeply ingrained in the Igbo culture and runs in the blood of the Igbo people. He said the apprenticeship system is a traditional entrepreneurial incubation model that has produced numerous successful entrepreneurs globally. He said the system, which is often misconstrued as mere slavery, referred to as Odibo in Igbo land, is of immense value to the society with enormous impact on industrialization and economic growth.
The choice of my topic, entrepreneurial ruralism, was provoked by the fact that I felt that the Igbo system It's not to call that someone what to answer. Our British system is not about more point. It's not Modibo. Ibambo and Odibo is attributes. Our system is Igbo man mentor mentee relationship in business. It's a school of its own with several levels of test that embedded in it. I want to bring these 7 levels into the public domain for the entrepreneurs, for the British to know the expectations. I also a doom law. It's anchored some basic facts. We need to strengthen the records, provide discussions, put the Igbo man's entrepreneurship development in the right perspective.
Acting Vice Chancellor of the university, Professor Jashafat Onwumere, described the topic as unique.
It's a model Igbo people should be proud of. Already it has gained international recognition, and many universities, top universities abroad, are queuing into that recognition. So he is discussing it from a different perspective, a perspective that looks at the family, and from the family how it goes, and that the Igbo man is born with entrepreneurship in him.
Lecturers and students from the Department of Business Management gave their assessment of the inaugural lecture.
Because of the Western civilization and imperialistic mindset, our young school leavers began to shy away from this model. And because of it, we're having high rate of unemployment. What the inaugural lecture is saying, we need to go back and pick up some of these traits of this model and begin to run our businesses so that we can be able to create jobs, create income, and be able to extend the influence of entrepreneurship traits of Igbo man across the nation and across the world.
The takeaway from this lecture today is one, the appreciation of entrepreneurship, the appreciation of Igbo culture, the appreciation of the way to go as regards to business ideas and innovation.
So it's going to be a very impactful University of Nigeria in a situation whereby if they should follow up this model in doing their businesses, you're going to find out that this knowledge is not going to die off. They'll keep pushing it from generation to generation.
Many spoke of the academic success and admirable character of the inaugural lecturer, describing him as an authority in his field.
Excited. Like he said in his interview, this is the highest level. You become a professor and you deliver an inaugural. It's like you've entered the hall where great professors are supposed to enter. Abweze is something else. Brilliant young chap. Brilliant, very brilliant. You heard him. In interview, he started lecturing, and that's him. He lectures every day of his life. He's a good teacher.
As a 222nd inaugural lecturer, in the Faculty of Business Admin, he's the 7th person, and in the Department of Management, he's the 1st person. That means he's breaking the jinx. It's like opening the door for us to be able to go through and come in. Then when you narrow it down to the lecture itself, entrepreneurial realism.
I thank God for this inaugural lecture, which has opened my eyes to see that, yes, an Igbo man, whatever they set their mind to do, they go for it and they achieve it. And I thank God for our Professor Kalu Emmanuel, for how far God has brought him, for he has been an inspiration for business management students.
The 222nd inaugural lecturer, Professor Carlo Abweze, was given an award and certificate in recognition of his remarkable achievements and contributions to his field. With over 81 published journals, 1 main textbook, and 1 book chapter to his credit, Professor Abweze is no doubt an academic authority in the field of business management.
Inaugural lecture of the University of Nigeria is a milestone for those in the academy. Is a rite of passage into the Hall of Fame of professors, full professors. If you're not there, you're not there. It gives opportunity to show the interaction between the hood, the gown, and the society.
From the University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, Chinemere Mikebunam reporting for Signature TV News.
You're still watching Full Day, and my guest is still Professor Emmanuel Kalu Agboeze, a professor of management at the University of Nigeria, and we're discussing the Igbo mentee-mentor apprenticeship model. And Prof keeps saying that it is not Igbo boy because it's much more than Igbo boy. One of the biggest issues in this model, one of the most problematic area in this model, is what happens when a mentee had concluded the mentorship, and then it gets to what we know as settlement. Why has it become a big problem today?
It appears to be a problem because some of the people who are involved in the scheme do not understand it. The apprenticeship system is a school. You need to pass through a school successfully to be certificated. And even when you have passed, the certificates are also graduated. First class, second class, third class, and so on. You can pass without passing with honors. For instance, if you come to the University of Nigeria, they tell that the certificates of the University of Nigeria are awarded in character and in learning. You can have a degree from University of Nigeria, and if you have not passed that of character, you end up passing without an honor. To graduate from University of Nigeria and say, I'm a graduate of University of Nigeria, you must have passed in character and in learning. We don't say in learning and character, get it right.
It's character.
It's character
and learning.
And the learning.
And this, from what you're saying, should also be practiced even in the Igbo boy system.
In the Igbo boy system, people think it's just to go and stay 7 years, 2, 3 years, 5 years and go. No.
And learn how to Igbo Safia.
No, it doesn't end there. The integrity test, attitudinal test, behavioral disposition are key. If you learn all the tricks without learning how to be humble, without learning how to the integrity aspect of it, you don't go too far away. When people join the scheme, they are tested at various levels. It could be on the business expertise, it could be on the integrity test, it could be on network or level of managerial disposition. And as you are being trained and exposed to these other levels, you may fail some and pass some. Those who consistently pass at all the levels get to the apex. And in fact, if you take that inaugural lecture, you discover that I graduated the levels of test into 7.
Can you share with us?
Like for instance, this is the inaugural lecture. It's of University of Nigeria. If you get towards somewhere along the line, you will see the model that was developed in course of this exercise. You have 7 levels. The first level 7 is if you are admitted into the entrepreneurship family business. The first is ability to adapt. Adaptability and change of environment. If you pass that level, you get into what they call resilience. If you pass out of resilience, you get to the third level, where you are subjected to what they call first level integrity test, where you have some banana peels left for you, trials, to see whether you are able to, whether you can be trusted, whether people can leave a business for you. And if you think you are smart, you move on. Your guy may not let you know that these things are clear trial periods. Some at this level will fail and they drop. Not every person that joins that apprenticeship system gets to the end. Some drop at the first level, some second, some third. But most will drop at the 7th level towards the period that getting ready to leave. But that's the place you're exposed to money. You're exposed to the business managerial trials. And you're also exposed to big money without you knowing that they are traps.
You know, Prof, I'm interested. You were just at the 3rd level. So let's take us through, because this is very important.
Okay.
Assuming these young people are watching us.
Okay. See, the first level, you have what they call adaptability, stroke environmental change test. Because you are moving from a village, from one place to a new place. If you without this are able to adapt, you are subjected to what they call socialization and resilience. How you are able to get on with other people. If you pass that level, you get to the test level, which we call first level integrity test. They will begin at that point. They will give you money, ask you to do 1 or 2 things, few things with money. At times they ask you to buy something, they won't ask you for the change. And somebody will come back and say, this is the change. This is how I went. And if you don't succeed at this level, support will drop. They will tell that young man is not trusted. It's not worthy of trust. And they will stop giving money, they stop sending on substantive error. You know that this thing we call that substantive assignment they will not send you. If you succeed, you go to the other level, which we call passion, zeal. If you pass that of passion, you are taking on at another level they call networking, where they widen the network. Begin to introduce you to business partners, where things are bought, where they're sold, and even the small tricks, the classification, different patterns of. You know, you can find this cup. They may look alike, but only those who are involved in the business will tell the difference. It could be by small weight or the other, but there must be something that makes Signature TV different from that TV houses. And those ingredients, you will not be exposed to it. And if you pass through that level, you get to the final level. At that 7th level, the test will be what we call business line managerial test. And you also get to what they call 2nd level integrity test. You're exposed to money. You're exposed to relationship. And still at that level, you're also exposed to what to call buy-sell architecture, and including leaving the whole business for you. And at this level, you think that the master is ignorant of what he's doing. Often he might give you 10 million and tell that it's 950 million. He could give you 10 million, and in 10 million he's giving you, he's marked it 10 million. But by the time you open it, it's 11 million. And he will wait for you to come and report to SOC. I'm sorry, this money you gave me for 10 million. I can't discover that it's 11 million.
So,
and you will take.
So 2 things will happen. One person comes back to say it's 11 million. Another person pockets the 1 million.
The other ones will pocket the 1 million and say, well, he said it's 10 million. But the man who gave it to you is aware that the fact that it's 11 million, that he marked it 10 million. But he knows that it's 11 million. It's a deliberate test of your integrity, your personality. You will take, he won't say the thing. After some time, he will give you 50 million. And give you 50 million, he might give you 52 million. And still tell you it's 50 million. You will just say, this poor guy doesn't have to count this money. It's like I made a mistake again, you laugh. You put 2 million into your pocket. And along the line, some of the things you have told you, you think you have learned, he will show you, he won't tell you. Look, one of my cousins was wedding, and that day of the wedding, the father came to his and said, "Well, you didn't give me trouble where you were growing up. You were not stealing my money. Occasionally, I give money under your bed, mistakenly, and you return it. You wouldn't know that now about it because I've done well. Take this car, give you that, give you this, because he have passed the integrity test. The other will come. Who will be busy taking that money and the rest of them?
And thinking that
the man doesn't know what he's doing. So the emphasis in Igbo apprenticeship system, it is a school that border on morals, attitude, resilience. And you know, if there's an apprentice, some days they won't give you food.
And they want to know how you react.
They know how to react. And expose you to money. And so you take the money to go and buy food. And if you do not understand that it is a school and there are tests and trials alongside, those things will think that do not matter, the small things matter. It is your performance, a level of performance that will tell how much you will settle with. And the settlement in Igbo land also does not end with the one they give you. It borders more on transferring pure business format and relationship.
And goodwill.
In fact, let me say it the way they said in Igbo land, they will tell you, Ananejonu edu watakagolo. Anejonu edu ezu watakagolo.
What does that mean?
It means you settle a good son of the family with words of mouth. It will be well with you. Please go to that man and tell him that you are my son. That I ask him to work with you. No money. The man goes and becomes a multi-millionaire.
Goodwill.
He has goodwill. And trust in Igbo land is not given. It's obtained. You know, it's not something you just go and get. You must showcase it. You must prove yourself. And the woman do it quietly, silently. You think that the old man is ignorant of the situation. He understands everything.
Okay, so the big issue, settlement.
Settlement.
So from what you're telling me, if 3 boys go to a merchant or a mentor,
yes,
it is likely that after 7 years, each will go with a different package.
Certainly.
But that is what is causing the problem.
I'll tell you.
Because the other guy says, oh, he settled him with 10 million, he settled him with 7 million, he's giving me 5 million. Why?
I will explain that. If you look at what they call the Japanese experiment approach, there's something we call Theory Z that talks about the integrity, personality, period of endurance. It's seriously related with what we call the Igbo apprenticeship model. And there's also this thing we call equity theory and managerial philosophy. Equity theory talks of fairness, not equality. Equity and equality are 2 different concepts. Some of the young boys are interested in equality, not in fairness. I give you an example. A man who was settled with 10 million brought his father to protest. His argument was that the other man was settled with 20 million and he was settled, and his son was settled with 10 million. And the interpreter asked the father of the man to just sit down and call his son and said, look, 2 of us are sitting down here. Let me tell you what happens. He called his son, please, go and buy me this. The boy went and came back, gave that thing and left. He called the other boy who was settled with 20 million and said, go and buy me this. He went and bought the same thing and came back and said, this is the change that was left from it. He told the father of the man, do you see any difference? That the same error that I sent to your son, he came back with this result. This other error that I also sent to this person, see the same result. We didn't discuss it. That we are interested in fairness. It is what you bring to the table that determines what you take out of the table. If you are self-centered, you talk of your own, you are not able to pass the integrity test. Everything is about behavior.
So,
So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You must also note
Yes.
that in that system is quasi formal. Most of the relationships are not documented. There is no documentation to say after 7 years you will be settled so much. What you are settled with
is at the discretion.
Is at the discretion of the master. And in the sense of that discretion, he does it fairly, depending on your disposition. And if you want to tell yourself the truth, even as an apprentice, you will know the difference between you and the other apprentice.
So what your research has shown is that, yes, we are both apprentice. I don't know why this word is so difficult for me. Okay, we are serving this man.
Yes.
After 7 years, that based on our character, our credibility, and so many other variables, that the mentor or the oga can decide that you get 7 naira, you get 10 naira, you get 15 naira.
Yes.
And they cannot be challenged.
It's discussion. Let me also say this. I have an ATM card. In my house, every person in my house uses it. But if it were in a public business, in my office, for instance, it's not every person in my office as a head of department that I can give key to the 2 hours. And it's not every person. And the job, if you look at the schedule of duties, it also varies based on competence, perceived competence, and ability to serve. So at the point of being discharged, even if you give them the same money, their blessings will always remain unequal.
And what they achieve with the money will also be unequal.
Will also be unequal. Let me say clearly. It's not about the amount. It's about what we're able to learn from the system. It's about what we're able to learn. The key, the substructure of the woman apprenticeship system is character building. Character building.
Okay. Prof, let's conclude. Let's try to conclude our conversation. So, the summary of it is character building.
Yes.
So, besides character building, at the end of your research and your study, what are your recommendations for the success of this model?
My recommendation is that since the system has gradually moved out of being, since I moved from the classical to neoclassical, things have to change. Some of those that needs to change is that what person expects at the end has to be defined.
So there should be an agreement.
There should be an agreement. And in this agreement, it shouldn't be one-sided. Those who are going to be trained also should know that it's a school. That you don't get a certificate if you have not passed. There are certain areas if you have not done well, we don't expect to be so separate.
Prof, I'm going to interrupt you because there's an area we completely neglected. How about the mentors or the ogas who have been so well served and they are still not interested in settling these young people?
Nature fights for itself.
So in your recommendations, if that is not done, could someone go to court?
You may not, because the law courts are reluctant to give verdict on issues that border on specific performance. Let me say this. At the contractual level, if expectations are not well defined, it gives room for discretion. In as much as we say that this discretion should be fairly exercised. But if a particular apprentice is able to understudy that rate and he has served faithfully, and the guy at the end of the day do not settle him, and he takes off, nature itself will stand on his side.
The Prof,
I'm being philosophical at this point.
I know, but a lot of people are not patient enough to wait for nature to take, to take care of this person who has not done. In going forward and in trying to make this model something that can be borrowed by other climes, like we see Harvard studying it, we see Oxford and so many universities looking at the apprenticeship system. People are not, can't we have a situation where if an Oga does not settle, these are things that can, how the young men can seek for redress?
There are. To that extent, there have been provisions that are not tapped. For instance, if you get into a partnership relationship and there's no agreement, if I get to a partnership relationship with you and there's no written agreement anywhere, there's an agreement. That we two of us have not sat down to draft an agreement means we have accepted by default to adapt an existing law. You know, there's some, if you get into a partnership, they will tell you, in absence of a written agreement between their partners, this takes place.
Okay, Prof, we're ending.
So
I wish we had. I wish we had all the time.
There are provisions that you can lie on.
Artists, attention. National anthem. Nigeria.
I want to end this with just a question, and I want a sentence or two for you to answer it. Why does the Igba boy system not accommodate females? Because a friend of mine is doing a study on that. Why is it not accommodating females? Is this something you looked at in your work?
But let me also say this. If you are discussing the degree, we can discuss the degree. Women are involved. They do. But if you go to the fashion industry, you find many of the women in that area.
You need to come back, Prof.
Okay. Women are involved, but it depends on the level.
And that's how we end our program for today. I mean, I found it very educating. I also found it very exciting. And I've learned one or two things. And I hope the young people will find time to watch this program. My guest has been Professor Emmanuel Kalu Agboeze, a professor of management at the University of Nigeria, who has taken out the Igba boy system, or the entrepreneurial ruralism, the Igbo model, as the topic he discussed in his inaugural lecture. Prof, I think that was great work.
Thank you.
And I hope we'll have opportunity where you go to some of these markets and all that and talk to those that are still in this practice, because I think it will help them.
Interestingly, we invited the market.
Were they there at the inaugural?
We invited the better women from Bodesha and Enugu, and some came from but deliberately to be able to be part of what we're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And that's our program.
Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure being here.